I'm joined here by Kirk Mitchell. Kirk, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Kirk Mitchell.
Lefty around.
Okay. I'm the director of the Vendor Management Organization for the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. So when you think of Blue Cross, I think of healthcare and your local plan, your state or your region. We're not them. We're the association, so you hold the license for all the plans and run major programs and build other assets for the Blues so they can be successful with your healthcare if you're a Blues customer, which I hope you all are.
Brian Kernan.
Hi, I'm Brian Kernan. I'm the VP of Indirect Procurement and Vendor Management at RNDC, the Republic National Distributing Company. We're the second largest liquor and wine distributor in the United States. So we're in about 40 states, we're about $12 billion privately held. We have about $1 billion of indirect that we manage. So.
Oliver Rawle, I'm Chief Procurement Officer at Prudential. For 3 months, I started in February. Prudential is a Fortune 100 financial services company comprised of three businesses. One is the insurance business, retirement services, and then asset management, business. I've been in procurement my entire career, largely within financial services, and so exposed to regulatory scrutiny, the various different financial regulations around the world applies with regards to the risk limits.
So we got a pretty diverse panel in terms of industry and experience and whatnot. We're looking forward to a lively discussion about the topic of managing risk in a very complex environment these days in supply chain as well as in the multi-vendor ecosystem environment that you all probably find yourselves. And Brian, I'm going to start with you because I had asked you to bring some of your materials to share during our panel here and share a whiskey or something while we're talking, but since that didn't happen. Why don't we start with this? How do you identify and prioritize the most critical risks in your supply chain in your multi-vendor environments? And what's the main sources and indicators of those risks?
Well, for us, it's complicated because we're the middleman. And so we've got our suppliers that we need to keep happy because they bid on us to let us distribute their products. So we have to look out for them and I'll say our best interest to make sure that they are happy and we are fulfilling the sales volumes and that we committed to with them. So making sure that we have the right focus on the right teams, making sure we're, I'll say, aware of what's going on in different trends on that end. And then on the other aspect of kind of more of the pure indirect portion, we have an interesting three-tier tax model that exists that we're the middleman of. So when we take the inventory, we own it, which is a little different than a lot of other CPG-type companies. So us minimizing that inventory means that's more cash that's freed up for us to do other things with. So it's a fine line for us to work and be able to save and work through having a handful of vendors that focus and are good partners with us for the long term. So that's really how we kind of chase after that.
Yeah, all over different industry, financial services. How about you? How do you identify and prioritize those most critical risks?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that question. One is the identity and then there's the prioritization of it. There's these two voices that sit on my shoulders. One is protect the organization, there's all these bad actors out there. And the other is move fast, you're being too slow. And so how do you move fast but get it right? It's a constant threat challenge that my team has to navigate. And so the identity part of it is a increasingly sophisticated, essentially filtering process that enables you to go from broad questions down to more focused areas on those areas that matter most, those areas of higher risk, in which you can quickly weed out the engagements, the vendors, the processes which aren't high risk, to enable them to move fast and maybe to focus in upon those small number of vendors which are of high risk. And then when it comes to the prioritization of it, one is understanding the ability of the business to actually compensate for some of the risk, but also understanding the impact of that risk becomes real. And so it's a good ability to quantify, is it a revenue impact, is it a reputation impact, is it a customer impact, is it a regulatory impact? So it enables us to focus and allocate resources. Solid processes, standard processes, good methodology, which is applied with rigor, sets it up for success.
Kirk, entirely different industry.
Mine's a little easier. My client tells me what it is. The federal government taps me on the shoulders with a bar and says, your stuff's got to work, right? And if it fails, it's got to come back up fast. So all the regular info stack flow down is standard. Of course, we want to know the basic things about our customers. Who are they? Are they financially sound? We're doing an entity contract. These are basic things we all know to do, right? But, our team is about impact, right? So we take it a step further. We say beyond that, because you can do all the, you can do all the normal stuff, put on all the terms, reference all the IT COVID stuff you want, and the stuff is sideways. So the risk that we've been embracing for the past year, working closely with the CIO, is it's got to work. It's got to work. Risk of failure of delivery is top of mind these days. And so that's something we've taken on to improve those outcomes. So we're leaning into ways of approaching that issue and taking that on, even though it's not necessarily the remit of a procurement organization. It's needed. It's needed because the businesses are not structured skill set wise, functionally, or mindset wise to manage complex supply relationships, of which they are a part. They don't have the bird's eye view and the experience to understand what is good, what's bad, what is risk. And so we have an accountability culture, so I said, I'm accountable. And we step into those areas and step into tools that we know are proven, and we improve those tools over time to drive outcomes on top of the basic foundational risk structures we don't use.
Kind of piggybacking on that, how do you balance the trade-off between risk reduction and the actual creation of value, getting things done, things have to work in your supply chain and with your multi-vendor environments? A lot of organizations, they're still working on doing effective risk management within their own organization, let alone dealing with the supply chain. So how do you do that? And kind of as a follow-on for that, how do you build a culture that recognizes risk when your suppliers may be extremely risk averse and be unwilling to take risks because contract language isn't particularly clear or something, or they may be very innovative and trying to help you drive and grow, and maybe they're less risk sensitive than you are. So kind of go back around, start with Rawle.
So the first question around is about how do you mitigate risk, and run me the question, sorry, the first one.
In terms of building a culture of risk with your suppliers.
There's another part of the question around how do you mitigate risk and access the value as well. It's a top of mind question that I'm seeing increasingly, where the risk models that we've built were designed to assess the risk of why don't we include Salesforce, the large organizations that have the infrastructure and rigor to deal with large amounts of vendor risk testing questionnaires and all the onerous iterations of contract reviews that go around. But there's a new wave of small enterprises driven by AI who are selling that they are companies that are going to change the industry, whatever industry that may be. And they may be right. These are they're promising. Those companies don't come with the same rigor when it comes to risk control. They don't have the SOC tests, the pen tests, and the teams of lawyers, and the teams to actually answer all the risk assessment surveys. And so we're finding that companies that from a product perspective we find extremely attractive are making us question how we actually accept the risk of the vendor because they can't meet the price standards. And so we're having to find a new way to mitigate the risk that simply didn't work previously, or not apply the Microsoft rule to a company of 10 people, because the alternative is we have to pass on a vendor that very much could be the one that changes the industry next. And it's challenging. It's challenging, but that's the challenge we're currently facing. Around the cultural level, one of the colleagues up this one.
So Brian, how do you balance those trade-offs and how do you build that culture across your supply chain?
This is a really challenging one for us because our company is really decentralized and we've gone through this transformation to have more of a kind of corporate focus. But for a long time, the individual states could do whatever they want. They signed contracts that they had no idea what the risk was or the potential impact and things that would also risk the fact our liquor license within those states. So I think some of the things that we tried to do was to create some process because there was zero when I came and got started there. And so creating that and education, I think as time went by in a lot of areas, once you had the opportunity to work with some of the folks, they start to get it like, oh, okay. And that us working pretty closely with the legal department to identify, here's a great deal of risk over like in contingent labor, the type of temporary help they're bringing into the warehouse and working with liquor and that from a criminal standpoint. So that's been I'll say a big challenge. So to have a process and then to drive in the value of that process and then to get people to adhere, be compliant to the process. And we're made a lot of progress. It's a journey and not a destination. So we're making progress, but we're not across the finish line. That's for sure.
But I'm not convinced that there really is a finish line per se. I mean, you call it a journey. I think that's
That's required.
What's it?
At the end of the journey, I get through a fire, is that it?
Yeah.
We're done.
But Kirk, how about in your environment, balancing, driving value creation, but dealing with
This is a fun part of the job, and that is getting to that piece. Because it's hard. It's really hard work. And so when you get there, you get an organizational impact, and you feel it, right? Someone in the earlier panel mentioned systems thinking. I think we don't talk enough about systems thinking. I read several systems thinking a couple of years ago, blew my mind. Oh, that's how that works? There's a great book, if you haven't read one lately, I recommend, it's called The Systems Bible by John Rawle. He writes axioms throughout the book, so it helps you apply what you're learning. He's got this great one. I was working with a business unit that had a lot of supplier problems and a lot of processes. And they said, don't come over here, Mr. Procurement guy. We got it. We have Visios, we've got PowerPoints, we've built up our Mountain Races, we've got the whole thing. Stay over there. We're in control. Here's a quote from his book about systems that was useful, right? People in systems do not do what the system says they're doing. Basic fundamental law of the system. They don't do what the system says they're doing. So what that infers that we got to get Toyota be on the factory floor. So I wrote our processes when the leader of the group got frustrated, his own team couldn't execute. They said, and the audit group came up and said, "You will fix this." Oh, I love audit. I love audit. Right? Those are our friends. It doesn't work. You must fix it. Clears out all the cultural, all the behavioral stuff that got blown away. Charge right to the jugular. We're going to fix it. And then you come to the tools, right, and the processes and the measures that tell you what's really happening. And my own personal law from the axiom is the more sideways something is, the closer we get to the problem for the longer period of time until it's fixed. So I'm in the delivery meetings with the managers. My team is, right? So we know exactly what's being said. We don't talk to suppliers the right way. We're using the wrong language. Things are broken. We never escalate to legal, ever. Very basic things, right? They're breached. Right, so these are the things that we understand, and then we can label things appropriately. Value, risk, good, bad. Summarize it up to the executive leadership. Okay, this is not a risk you're taking today. Is that acceptable? No, it's not that. Right? Then we take it back and we create a conversation between the C-level that never existed before, down to the operational level to drive outcomes. I think risk allows us to have a conversation of change and transformation that is underutilized.
So every person in the audience today that has any relationship to risk is now walking away feeling warm in the heart, because very few people ever say they love audit.
I love those guys.
But one of the other things that the companies spend a ton of money on educating their people how to find the vulnerabilities and where to go after. And it's kind of like these folks that think they've gotten a great deal and really take it to the cleaners, and then they come to procurement like, help me. Right? And so we need to stop this kind of in the beginning and let's work together to really mitigate that risk.
Well, if I can call it audible, this wasn't one of the questions we pre-talked about, but I think this is a good thing. Is it procurement, supply chains, are they accountable for third-party risk management? Or are they accountable for the third-party risk management program and the business accountable for risk management and dealing with whatever the business outcomes are and the various risks as they perceive them? So, your reactions to that?
I think capture of those risks, that you have central oversight and governance of them. But I also do believe that being at the coalface gives you a view, a perspective of risk that you wouldn't have if you're too far removed. And so I'm a fan of hub and spoke model when it comes to the management of the risk. So my team would be the hub providing the governance, oversight, technology, data, but the spokes are the business owners, those relationships with clear escalation paths as to how men interact. It was interesting. I started as Chief Procurement Officer on Tuesday, and within 2 days I noticed that A, we didn't have a vendor management program, and our vendor risk processes weren't robust enough. I've tried to sell this program before, but it's like, can I sell insurance? No pun intended. But it's difficult because people don't see the value. And then that Saturday night, this public knowledge night, was an 8K off file, 4 days after I started, I get a phone call from the CIO on Saturday night at 8 PM saying, we've had a cyber attack, can you tell us who our top vendors are, who owns the vendor relationship, who owns it on the vendor side, and how do we reach out to them? And I was like, don't know. Not because I didn't know, because we hadn't defined it. And so the ability to communicate the value of those programs is challenging. And whilst I wouldn't encourage having a cyber attack, it did focus minds on actually important to put these things in place, and the business playing their part and participating in it as well.
Now, would you say that's a situation where maybe there was an underinvestment in those programs and third-party risk management, and now that you have the attention, does that make it easier for you to go about implementing and dealing with third-party risk?
I have always struggled to get funding for programs which don't have a direct dollar sign to them, and whilst you can quote the various dollars that have been lost through cyber attacks, sometimes it is too tenuous. And so most of my programs have been third-party risks that are underinvested. I think we are now entering, you heard it from some of the keynotes, an age of incredible opportunity and the maximum risk there's ever been, where if we don't have access to real-time data that we can assimilate in some intelligible, automated way, then we're going to be at a disadvantage of some major sophisticated, nefarious actors. And so I haven't been unsuccessful to date, but the necessity to be more successful is ever present.
Well, I have high hopes for you. I mean, your tenure is so short. That's not communicated. Brian,
from the underinvestment, I think is something we all share. I think it's kind of, you have to prove it, get people to understand, and once they experience something or they start to kind of see the value, then they start to truly understand. So when you're having, when you've narrowed your vendors, when you're going through your kind of QBR type function, the business can kind of see that there's more to it than you're just kind of helping them with the contract. I think that's part of it. And then, I agree. I would equate it to, it is a blend. We might facilitate and help the technology department by Microsoft or by cloud. But at the end of the day, if it breaks, they're not calling the procurement department. We're going to help them. I'll say if something's kind of out of whack with the contract. So I think it becomes a blend of that, and I really see it being no different regardless of what the department or what area of the business that it is. I mean, I do think it's a collaboration, but everybody's going to have their defined responsibilities.
Kirk.
Yeah, I feel the business case challenge. It's tough, right? I mean, I had that 3 weeks ago with my boss. I'm building an ecosystem right now. It's twice the size of the last one. I get more people to run it. So we have to find solutions, right? To be creative. It's exciting what was happening with AI because for me, I think it's in the conversation around what can we do to create capacity in our teams. And I think we have to believe every ounce in that opportunity to do things that don't take a lot of effort. There's a little bit of AIism in there, right? To do things that are now easier to do, that were hard before. And at the same time, structure, sometimes automate or completely automate things to create capacity to do the manual things will always be manual, but are high value. And our teams up the ladder. I'm kind of moving my team up the ladder with AI. I think there's opportunities to be here, but not for long. It's maybe 2 or 3 years, and then you'll be expected to produce AI quality infused work. They'll just be assumed, oh yeah, you got the report, it's done tomorrow morning, right? So it'll be at that level. I think right now we have an opportunity, I think, to create some capacity, do some higher level things, and fill that capacity with that stuff, right? So that we can kind of bring more things into the work. I got a list of things I would love to do, can't get to. And those things drive outcomes. But I can't write a business case for it today. I'll never get the data for it to tell that story. So we just have to do them. But I can't do them if I can't bring my team out, right? So you have to be rational. So I think we have to look at these opportunities in the environment and take advantage of them strategically and put in the stuff that we know needs to be there. You know, and do experiments and try and fail and improve the toolkit.
Before we focus on tools and some of those benefits and barriers, what are some of the best practices and tools for mitigating and transferring or flowing down some of the risks that you face in your organization, in your supply chain, in your multi-vendor environment? And how do you evaluate their effectiveness and efficiency? I go back to you, Kirk, and work our way down.
Right now, I think tools are replete. They're everywhere, right? They're actually getting good. Tools in our space have been, they've been a mess for 20 years, right? We've never had the tools in the procurement space. Not really. The user experience was horrible. They didn't cover all the major aspects we need covered. You need 3 tools. Now I'm starting to see tools that are broader, more comprehensive. A business that you can put in front of a business and they don't have a heart attack, right? And they are genuinely adding value. I think I'm very excited about the tool space for the first time in the procurement vertical. Fan of B2B for kind of what we do today is going to get a sense of key operational risks and some level of financial risk without going through a financial statement analysis. So that's a very powerful tool. Put that away. Now let's talk about some operational stuff, right? So that's kind of how we're starting off with it. One tool that is an example of something we can build that may be powerful is sentiment analysis of publicly available data on key partnerships. Today, a new risk that I think is emerging is someone did something in your leadership team of one of your partners that a little icky. You never heard about it, but someone else did, and they called the CEO of your firm, or the CIO of your firm, and they feel they didn't respond. You didn't know about it. That's the problem. I don't ever want to be in a room with my leadership team, and I don't know something that the supplier did that could impact our brand, or impact our stance on how we treat our employees and our ethics. And employees today are empowered. They want to be seeing our suppliers treat their people and lead firms the way we lead our people the way we act. They want to see it reciprocated. They want to see a dissonance. There's phone calls made, emails sent, and responses need to be made. So I think this is an area where, again, coming back to the tools that are available now, you could go today and create a very simple tool that would scan any number of news alerts, aggregate and score that stuff. Without even reading a word, you can get a scorecard on what's in the public domain about a supplier you can run continually. That's actually a doable thing you can do today. I asked a buddy of mine to code that for me 20 years ago, and it was a big deal. Now, you can build it.
Now the challenge is the data.
That's the challenge of the data. Data sources, right? That's against Google alerts, whatever you do a little deal or access some logs. Start somewhere, right? You can be amazing how powerful you can be to go to Google and put in some keywords around claim, ethics challenge, behavior challenge, and to see what comes up for your top 10 suppliers. Interesting read, right? I've done it better than I know it, and I get surprised by it at the wrong term and at the wrong time, and be right.
And I think that's a real third-party risk management AI use case that really is taken.
Yeah.
Brian, how about you?
Well, we were chatting about this earlier. Tools are wonderful, but you got to have a process. You can't just throw a tool at it and think it's going to solve the problem. And so that's often, it's the process and the data. I mean, it's truly so many things, but it's especially true for what we do. You can go and do a lot of manual work to show different information on reports and that. If it's the right information, great. Then go and automate it, find a better way.
understanding of the risk landscape rather than a methodical step-by-step workflow. This is the risk and engagement, a more real-time understanding of this is my vendor supply base and these other things which are happening out there that may have impact on my organisation. And so we are starting to explore that, some specific use cases. And so doing both what the panelists are saying, both process optimization, the various tools, but also starting to explore GAI and how we can start to pivot to a more real-time understanding of our key risks. Not all third-party risk management, vendor management is based upon the principle that not all vendors are created equal. And so how we allocate time upon those few vendors that really matter the most, and then apply a disproportionate amount of management time to those vendors. Part of it.
Back to tools in that space, I mean, do you have the tools that enable you to focus your limited resources on the risks that are most applicable to you, to the vendors that are most important? Like you said, not all vendors are created equal, not all vendors have the same business value to your business or business impact. God forbid, something happens. Talk a little bit about the tooling or the best practices that you put in place to be able to deal with, and respond effectively to risk, to be able to focus the limited resources you have.
Sure. And so the way I conceptualize the tools that we have the tools to facilitate the process, and so the evaluation of the capture of risk, the remediating actions, but then we have tools that provide us insight to make the risk domains we have. So financial risk, cyber risk, sustainability risk, reputational risk. The challenge we have is actually too much data problem, or an inability to bring all that data in an efficient manner problem. And so we have all these separate systems, whether it be sort of Dun & Bradstreet or Capital IQ or EcoVadis, all these other tools that exist that tell you specifically to that domain, but they still sit fairly siloed. And as humans, we are incapable of moving fast enough to assimilate all that data to make decisions at the speed that it needs to take place. So my problem is not access to the system, access to data, it's ability to process it at a speed that's actually of value to the organization. And so you do what you do, you do a cursory view without getting too deep. I think Gen AI, from a procurement lens, is going to be hopefully transformative to both third-party risk management and to contract lifecycle management, and get to a depth of granularity and understanding the risk that humans simply can't get to because there's just too much data.
I have a slightly different problem. My organization, look over culture, it's interesting. It's not too much data, it's not in the right place. So decision-making is sometimes a feature of comfort around understanding the breadth of the situation. So if I feed you tunnel data around InfoSec risk over here, and I gave you some delivery risk over here, and I give you a discussion of brand risk over here, you're like, whoa. Okay, if we pull this together and tell me a risk story, I can see the comprehensive risk, understanding of that supplier, and then I understand the relationship a bit better, and how to make all decisions around the relationship better, because I know the risk, the panoramic view of risk. So that's the journey we're on. We have a lot of great data, we have a lot of great stuff, but it's in different silos, and we've not yet had the resources and time to break them down and tell a really good story.
Truly leverage the data.
Exactly.
It's sort of, because it is in different places, and it's whether it's through an acquisition or what, you haven't had also the time to go and kind of clean it all up and put it together nice and neat. Yeah, and then if you can't get that done, then it's hard to really get to the next level of the intelligence like you're speaking of. It's been some of our challenges.
Well, a little lightning round, if you will, as we kind of wrap things up here. So from your unique perspective, what do you see as the largest risk today in the supply chain management, particularly in multi-supplier or multi-vendor ecosystems that we're dealing with? So, Kirk, I'll start with you. We'll go down the lightning risk.
The biggest risk continues to be the increasing size and expansion of the complexity of relationships in firms, of how they are continuing needing more tech, more contractors, subcontractors to deliver more complex solutions in faster cycles. There's not enough time to understand what we're doing. That is risk.
Right? How about you?
I'd say the unknown. I mean, we've got a lot of world events going on, and we don't quite know how that's going to play out. We've obviously experienced some health unknowns in the past, and all those had a major impact on our business. Before that, we would have never anticipated that. So I'd say really just it'd be the unknown for me.
Cybersecurity, as evidenced by day 4 for me. But a large amount of products are now contingent upon providing increasing amount of data, and there is ever increasing sophistication of nefarious actors out there. And so we want the